What's up, nerds, and welcome to the Stix&Crits podcast. I am one of your hosts, Thomas King, alongside my other host, Nathan Powers.
What's up, guys? How we doing?
What's going on, Nathan?
Oh, not much. Just looking at the next cosmetics I want to buy on Fortnite.
Oh, fucking die.
If you couldn't tell from the title and from that little silly thing I just said, we're going to be talking about microtransactions today for our video game segment, and then we're going to roll into player versus player in your D&D game.
Woo! I'm excited about both of these topics.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of polarizing opinions. But
with facts.
We're gonna let the numbers speak for themselves on this one. So let's kick it off with our lovely friends at every AAA developer who wants to somehow get even more money out of your wallet with microtransactions.
So, okay, let's start off with something here. I am not so totally enraged by how microtransactions are being utilized right now, but more or less what kind of, I think Fortnite really popularized, which is the trend that it may get to eventually, which is games being able to be developed, being released in early access for free, and then just pumping it full of microtransactions to keep it alive. And the reason I think that sets a bad trend is because companies will be able to cut costs with development time, which means they'll be able to cut team members a lot easier and a lot quicker in the life cycle. And they'll be able to rely on microtransactions and possibly, I don't think many people will do this, but possibly just let that game kind of sit in early access for as long as physically possible and just benefit off the fruits of microtransactions.
Yeah, and it kind of turns your game into more like a mobile game platform.
Yeah.
And really, when we look at phone games or tablet games, we aren't as critical of it because you have less expectation. You have less expectation out of a mobile game, right? It's something that's supposed to be just to take your attention away from whatever the fuck you're doing, on a train ride, on a car ride, sitting in a class you don't want to be in.
Yeah.
You just get a little distraction out of it, and that's fine. And I think that microtransactions, the way that Fortnite is doing it, also isn't really that bad. You have the emotes and you have the different skins that you can get, and I think that's fine because it doesn't create an imbalance of play, and it's totally optional. You can opt in or not. So I'm not necessarily mad about that. I do think it is a little bit of a predatory practice, though.
Yes.
Kind of the similar thing for anybody who grew up in the 2000s with kids being able to do the in-game purchases on their parents' phones, and then they changed the laws and the rules where you had to, have a password on the parent account to be able to make them. And it's kind of doing the same kind of predatory practice where it's like these kids are being given Xboxes and PlayStations for their Christmas presents and birthday presents, and then they just put mommy and daddy's credit card on it. They have their subscription, and then they buy all the micro things that they want to get.
Yep.
And everybody knows kids are irrational.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't give a shit. They just know that they want something.
And they shouldn't give a shit. They're kids.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you got a reason, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, they should be learning. But the whole point of this is microtransactions, no matter how you slice it, I think that they are a detriment to gaming. No matter what you put it in. Sure, cosmetics, okay, fine.
There's an argument there.
Yeah, I absolutely get it. But in most cases, which hasn't been the case in, I guess, Fortnite, could be one of the prime examples for this. In most cases, cosmetics lead to other things. They lead to
I think I said it last week. It's the gateway drugs to loot boxes.
Yeah, it is exactly. Yeah, and you get things like loot boxes, or you get the ability to pay to win, and that's when your game just falls apart.
That's what Destiny did.
Yeah, I mean
they came out saying there would never be loot boxes. They started with cosmetics, and they were doing the Sparrow bikes for the races, and then they started doing the randomized boxes. Battlefront is a really big anything that EA makes.
Battlefront is super evil because they basically locked Darth Vader behind a paywall.
Yeah,
because the amount of hours it would have taken to get him would have been ridiculous. I think it was something like 700 hours. Don't quote me exactly, but it was a fucking absurd number.
It's a really long time to be able to get it, and that's kind of the whole That's the whole philosophy they're hiding behind. It's like, well, you don't have to buy it to actually get it. You can get it in game, which is total bullshit because nobody's going to sit there and spend that much time to get something constantly being beaten by an unfair advantage that someone else has. Either you pay the money or you don't pay the game.
Yeah, and it's actually a problem that we're starting to see more with one of my favorite developers.
Bethesda?
No, God, which was 2K.
Oh, yeah.
2K games.
With
The
the
reason I like them was because of the NBA 2K franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get that very straight. That's the only reason I like them.
Yeah.
It's always one of the top selling sports games. The NBA 2K series as a whole is a phenomenal fucking basketball series. Yeah. But lately they're talking. They injected a lot more things, and they're talking about one thing in particular which I did not like, which may be true. But regardless, it's something that sucks in gaming. But they said that they put out a sample size, or they studied a sample size and found that most people don't want to sit there and grind to get to where they want to be in the game, and they would rather just pay for it. Okay, fine. This is what I say to you, though. And honestly, I fucking honestly mean this when I say it. If you don't want to grind as a gamer in a video game to which you're going to spend $60 on and put I don't know how many hours into this game, okay, you should not be playing video games, because the whole point of games like RPGs or sports games with the My Player mode and getting your character to
which is basically an RPG.
Yeah, pretty much. You're playing with all these different skill sets. You can make this player whatever you want them to be. But if you're not willing to jump into a grind and you want to just pay to make your life easier, not only are you still not going to be good at the game because you're not playing and you're not learning how to play with your My Player, you're just thinking that, oh shit, I got the strongest guy, so fuck it, now I'm great.
Yeah, and as soon as you get your stats up to a certain level, the game even like what's the term I'm looking for? It promotes that style of play where you pay for the high skills, because then it's like easy to make your shots.
Yeah.
It's easier for you to get your swats on the ball. It's easier for you to block shots, and you put your nice, nifty little passes in between defenders and all that stuff. It promotes that style of pay to win.
Yeah, and it sets a bad precedent, because then those people, the developers, really think that that's all we want to do is skip it.
It puts money over skill.
Yeah, so then not only are they going to fill these games with microtransactions, okay, my fear, and again, this is what I think, my fear is that they'll pump these games full, and then what's going to end up happening is they're going to take content out. There's going to start being less content in these games, because if they can see that they can make as much or more money with half the work, they're gonna do it.
Yeah, and then you're paying more for less.
Like, you have to remember, at the end of the day, this is a business, and it's the number one entertainment business in the fucking world. So if they can cut production time and R&D and all this money they throw into any kind of development, they will do it, and they'll chop games to bits. Which, the one thing I saw in 2K19 that scared the shit out of me. Okay, they took a loot box, right, and made it not a loot box. It's basically like the Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
So you pay to spin this fucking wheel.
And maybe get what you want.
Yeah, or maybe get shit.
Yeah.
So it's not... Come on, guys. Loot boxes weren't bad enough already.
Yeah, now you have to make it... Like, you're not even getting what you want to buy.
No, you're paying money to take a shot at getting something, which in the grand scheme of things, it's probably like a fucking 5% chance.
Yeah, and then they can really skew it. And it's it just continues pushing the boundaries of what we're going to let developers do to our games.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of games that don't take this approach, right? Like, and then they just take the DLC approach, and I think that's the very appropriate approach. And also, I think cosmetics, pre-order special stuff, I think is a great thing. You pay an extra $20, like with 2K, for example.
Sure.
If you did the pre-order, you got some in-game content, and you got 100,000 VC, I think is what they give you. Which I'm pretty okay with, because getting that initial boost in the beginning, it helps you skip the not the grindy parts, because you still have to grind to get that extra like 15, 20 rating that you're trying to get up to get to the 90s. But
I understand that, but I think they do it, so 2K does it in packages or in like tiers. So you have like the 2K regular edition, then you have 2K special edition, then you have the silver and gold edition.
Yeah,
and those
then
offer
Legend
you,
edition.
Yeah, and they offer you different tiers of VC.
Right.
So the in-game currency.
So we've been talking heavily about in-game currency.
Forever.
Yeah, that's another thing that I was really interested in talking about, because the in-game currency isn't actually really a new thing. The MMO world has been doing in-game currencies ever since their inception, really, with the exclusion of like World of Warcraft. They do like the player coins where you can pay to get like a month of subscription or a year. I can't remember. I haven't played WoW since college. But
yeah, and you can use like that's a different animal. So they did, I think, which is very cool. So if they're going to, and also thank you for bringing it up, because I did want to bring this up at one point. If they're going to take one side and kind of chop into us and get at our wallet with these extra microtransactions and DLCs and all this, I love what Activision Blizzard does. Wow, that's a sentence I never thought I'd say. But I love what they do in the fact that you can take your in-game gold and you can purchase the next upcoming DLC, or you can purchase playtime with it.
You can grind for it.
Right. So if you have in-game money, you can use it to purchase things.
Yeah.
Which is that's totally dope. Like that's a really cool way of rewarding your players for the grind.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. Rewarding your players for the grind.
Free DLC by grinding. And Magic the Gathering Arena has also kind of done the same thing. But my issue with the in-game currencies isn't how you can like convert it to giving players rewards for grinding, but it's how they structure the purchasing tiers.
Okay.
So like what they'll do is, for instance, Magic the Gathering Arena or Hearthstone, the price of a DLC or like packs will be one price. Let's say I'll do a random number. So for a Magic Arena, it's 1,000 gold, in-game gold, which is the currency that you get from like doing dailies and winning games and things like that. You can't buy that currency. You have to buy the gems. That's the currency that you can purchase. It's 1,000 gold to buy one booster pack on MTG Arena. Or you can get, I can't remember if it's 1 or 3 packs for 600 of the gems. By the way, the gems you can in Magic Arena you can also get through grinding and playing.
Oh, there you go.
Which is pretty cool.
Okay.
But the way they have the tiering of the like purchase the amount that you can get is off skewed. So like it costs to get 45 packs like $20 or $40 worth of USD in gems to get. So like it's like 9,000 or 8,500 gems or whatever it is. But they don't sell that many gems. They sell like 9,600 gems, and that's what you purchase.
Oh, wow.
So they give you an illusion of you're getting more for your money to buy this specific tier, but really it costs them nothing to do that. They're tricking you into paying USD rather than grind for the actual currency itself.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of MMOs do this. It's the same tiered structure. Hearthstone probably isn't as egregious with it. It's probably a very small fraction, but they do it a little bit.
Hearthstone has that's a totally different thing.
Yeah, Hearthstone I don't really target as someone who abuses
because it's a mobile game.
Microtransactions.
I consider that.
Well, so is MTGA.
Right. When we talk about it, I think there's a definite need of separation. Like console and PC games should be doing this less often. Mobile games, it's fine because everything's practically free. Those games are all free to pick up.
Yeah.
And most games you don't have to.
And the games that you buy, they don't really they're not riddled with microtransactions like the other ones.
There's only I do remember
you'll get bad ports sometimes, but that's about it.
Right. I do remember, what was it, 5 or 6 years ago when remember when those farming games were super popular?
Yes.
So that's the only thing that bugged me about that. It's like
Farmville.
Yeah.
The Facebook game.
I played Smurf Village, which was dope. I loved Smurf Village. So I hated doing like planting the crops and being like, oh, you can come pick these again in like a day.
Yeah, or you can have a bot do it for you.
Yeah, or you could pay to have it done now.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, because I understood that pull. Like sometimes it was like pay $1 and you don't gotta wait a week. You can get these gold strawberries you need now, so you can feed the other Smurf village and you can get them with you.
Hey man, Smurfette needs her fucking strawberries.
Which is like I would totally almost jump for these things, but I guess as you get older,
see, I'm the opposite. I actually those kind of games really turn me away from them because like a game will be really fun. and then they're like, oh well, you have to literally
Yeah.
wait real time to be able to do it, or you can pay to get through. And it's like usually those games are the funner games. They're the ones that have more of the development in them, and they literally lock the fun of the game up
Behind cash.
Behind cash, exactly.
Yeah.
And like it's a trend everyone needs to be aware of and be careful of, because if we don't, and really it's mostly because they target kids with it.
Right.
I mean, the demographic between 10 and 20 is the most people that play video games.
Well, I see. No, this is where I'm going to disagree, because
Maybe between 20 and 30, you have a lot like now.
there's even more. I think there's a larger demographic out there. Like the kids clearly make up the bulk of the demographic for microtransaction targeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, like I remember when they dropped Eververse in Destiny. And people were like, "Oh, it's cosmetics. It's never going to get worse than this."
And they even had an official statement saying they wouldn't do loot
right.
boxes.
They said this multiple times.
Look how that turned out, kids.
Right, and then so these men, these older men and women that were ages 20 to 40, because I knew a couple of older dudes that would play and spend money.
A lot of people were in Bungie when they were in college when they came out.
Yeah, and they would say, like morons, take my money. Shut up and take my money. That whole thing with Fry. And that's literally what it is, man.
Yeah.
That's how they act.
Yeah.
And they were like, it's not going to get any worse. And then it did get worse, because you were able to buy these randomized loot drops, the loot boxes. And I think everyone downplays, and I understand, like, if it's your favorite game and someone's talking shit, you want to defend it, but don't downplay the impact that microtransactions can have on a video game.
Absolutely.
Because it can turn into a shit show.
And if you care about something, you don't want to see it be destroyed.
No,
by something that can be toxic.
You want to see it better.
Too much of a good thing is a bad thing.
That's very true.
You know what I mean? And it applies to everything in life. And, we already pay a lot for the content that we got to get. And granted, like you always keep saying, it is a business and they're out to make money. But also, these developers are putting a lot of work into making these and a lot of these games artistic pieces that really define the culture of the generations that they're being put out in. And when you start to muddle that with corporate influence, you begin to create like as someone who went to art school, I learned a lot about art history. You start to cultivate the kind of elitist, like you don't get art culture, where if you don't agree with what we're putting out to you, then you just don't get it and you don't belong.
You don't understand what it is.
Yeah, you don't understand. And it's because really you're too poor to really have the fun that they're having. And you don't want it to ever reach that way, because there are a lot of good things that are coming out of all these great games that are being made. Like even Red Dead Redemption 2 came out. Game is phenomenal. Obviously Game of the Year candidate and won some Game of the Year awards.
Yeah.
On some voting polls. But the microtransactions on the online play are fucking horrendous.
Yeah, when the economy was first introduced for the online, it was insane. And people knew it was structured that way, because you needed in-game. They had the dollars, so they kept the
dollars and gold, right?
Yeah, and they kept the dollars from the main game and then introduced gold. So for some certain reason, but we all know what it is.
It took like 100 hours to get a gold bar.
Yes,
some crazy number.
You would in the regular main game, you would get like anywhere from like $3 to $20 whenever you would kill a person and you would loot their corpse or whatever it was. In the online mode, that was dropped down to about 20 cents, which means you were not making money. Then on top of that, gold bars were increasingly difficult to find. It's not enough that there was only 15 available in the main game.
Yeah.
And then you get into online and it's even more rare than that, but you need them. I think.
Unless you buy them, of course.
Yeah. Duh.
Yeah.
So they did that to support their microtransactions, which they got off of GTA, because those cards were worth money in there. But I think personally, especially with what's been happening lately, that we are at a breaking point in gaming, and it's very important that we make sure we understand how we're going to operate and how we're going to dictate the market moving forward. Because right now, there's multiple companies engaged in lawsuits with Sweden and Germany to have loot boxes removed from games because they are seen as a form of gambling.
Yeah.
And they are selling this form of gambling to children. Which
Jim Sterling has a really good video on it where he dives into it, and it really, and like obviously us talking about it and a lot of other people talking about it are gonna make you like see and do your own research, but like he does such an in-depth deep dive on the whole microtransaction world. I definitely recommend everybody go watch it. We'll put the link in the description. But it's just, I mean, it's becoming predatory behavior, and it's like you said, people are all about their games, their titles, and they want to shut up and tell you to shut up and take their money. But I think, I agree, we're at a breaking point. I think what's going to happen, we have two things that could happen. Either the video game industry is going to kind of push it as much as they can, then they're going to wise up and say, okay, now let's regress a little bit. Let's go back to what was working and go back maybe 5 years and with a microtransaction game, and like that was the sweet spot. Or what I think is going to happen is that we're going to see a partial market crash in video game sales due to these aggressive microtransaction things. And then you're going to have more government infringement on games, which we do not need. We do not need at all.
Okay, so there needs to be some form of regulation, a small amount, because what they're doing right now, what Activision did with releasing that algorithm to basically make you want to buy things, that is literally one of the biggest companies, and one of
abuse.
They're spitting literally in our face, saying that look what we could do. We can do this. And
you'll do it because you're stupid.
Yes, exactly. And this is something that doesn't need to be in gaming, because I think it'll be worse than that. So what I think is honestly going to happen is that we're going to see console games, if this progresses. If this progresses to where microtransactions are slowly being put into every single experience, which it's getting kind of close now, I think we're going to see the console games and the PC games get chopped up like mobile games.
Yeah.
And you're going to see this $0 price tag on it. And they're going to keep pieces of content away from you. They're going to start keeping not only cosmetics and weapons and armor,
but levels,
story elements, characters themselves. And it's just going to get worse.
DLC content.
Yeah. And they'll take it from being able to sell you a DLC for $20 to, if they break it up, they'll probably be able to make $150 on one DLC package.
Yeah.
So it can only get worse, because 4 years, and like I've had discussions with people, oh, as long as it's cosmetics, it's fine. Yeah, but there's no rule in place for that. Like if a company introduces cosmetics and keeps it that way, which is big ups to Fortnite,
for doing that,
for somehow having control over themselves.
I think what Fortnite's going to end up doing is they're going to keep the cosmetic stuff going for a while, and then because everything's on the same map, what they'll eventually do is they'll start releasing map packs as DLC, or they'll introduce map packs into loot boxes.
Now the thing with them is that they're making so much fucking money, and that the development cost for Fortnite was
it's still really low.
Yeah, it's extremely low, because the game still has problems here and there, but they have seen that they have a huge engagement, and the amount of money they make on a daily basis is fucking ridiculous.
It's staggering.
You're talking about a game, just to put this in perspective for you, that makes over 1,000% more in sales in 1 year than most full price tag games with microtransactions make in an entire life cycle.
Yeah.
Which is fucking obscene, but they aren't pushing it forward. So that's a good thing for now, seeing as the most popular game is sticking to cosmetics.
I'm really interested to see what Fortnite does, even though I think it's a garbage game.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
I do have to give those guys props to kind of sticking to a moral high ground. Like they're only really doing the microtransactions to make the game free to play.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm totally okay with that, even though it's not my cup of tea. But people can play the game and still be really good at the game, and their character just looks like a bum and doesn't do really cool dances. Like that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Objectively, I'm okay with that. But on the same side, you have to wonder what they're gonna do next.
Yeah. It'll just spiral out of control if it's not checked. So that's why So for this particular episode, I want everyone to share it, not for our views or for ourselves, but as for the gaming industry as a whole.
Yeah, we have an obligation as fans and consumers to really dictate what these companies are allowed to do to us.
We have a moral and financial obligation to every other gamer in the world.
Because nobody wants to just cut games out of their life.
Yeah.
especially hardcore gamers. And like, and I am so ingrained in the gaming culture. I can't foresee myself really coming out of video games fully. Now, I am a big tabletop player, so I could see myself just being like, fuck video games. They're money grubbing bastards. I'm done with them forever and just play tabletop games for the rest of my life.
But I physically cannot do that.
Yeah.
I think I will die.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's right now, like we've said, it's a very important time for gaming.
Dark days.
It's a very important time for gamers as whole. And I understand there's going to always be things marketed to children, and they're going to give in because it's easier. I want this, I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand really what's behind it.
And parents just want to shut their screaming kids up.
Exactly. So that's why let's fucking get through this together as gamers. Let's show them that they don't have this power over us, because the other option is heavy government regulation, and that might be worse.
That's usually worse.
Yeah, that'll be worse than if we turn console games into a mobile structure.
Yeah. Let us know what you think in the comment section down below, guys. We're going to take a quick break, hear a word from our lovely sponsors at
Roll for it, baby.
rollforitdice.com, and we will be back with our D&D segment. PvP. Is it good? Is it bad? What do we think?
The answer is yes.
We'll find out after this break.
Rollforitdice.com is a monthly subscription where you can pick up tons of dice, miniatures, even some Legos, and the great little trinkets that they supply you monthly. Look at that sexiness. These guys came up with a brilliant idea to get people on a monthly subscription. So instead of going around perusing at stores, having to interact with human beings, you can just pick them up on their Patreon. And it's lovely. You can get 4 sets, you can get minis. They just supply you with everything you need.
I get kind of sick of going online to Etsy and trying to find specific users and everything, but they have it all right there on their website. And it's great to have that.
So don't forget to check out rollforitdice.com and their accompanying Patreon. All the links will be down below. Welcome back, guys, and we're here at the Stix&Crits podcast, and we're going to jump in to one of my favorite topics to talk about.
One of the most controversial topics.
Yeah, that's easily
in D&D.
Yeah. And that is PvP.
Player versus player. We already see that it's getting a lot of traction with competitive D&D. So it raises a question. How is PvP in your game?
So, last week, I had a discussion on Facebook with many Facebook groups. Actually, it wasn't many Facebook groups. It was like 2. But with many people about PvP.
I think they call that a couple.
Yeah, there's a couple. So, so the general consensus from what I gathered, taking this small sample size and speaking to these people do not like PvP, generally. They think it'll destroy your game, it'll destroy your friendships, and you just should not do it at the table. Now, also, with those same people, they said that not only do they not want PvP in their game, and that's a no-go if they're DMing, they've also never played it. So I think that there's a misplaced stigma on PvP. I think it's unnecessary, especially if you haven't tried it. You can't really know what to expect. I remember I spoke to one person in particular, and he was like, this is just a flat out no if I'm DMing. There's no PvP allowed in any sense. I won't even allow them to do a bar fight type thing. And he also mentioned, which this was really weird, that if his whole group wanted PvP, he would still not allow it.
Yeah, and now I don't think that the stigma is misplaced. Because there are definitely things that can come out of player versus player scenarios that are detrimental to the social dynamic of the group if it's not handled properly. But that kind of just ties back to the thing that I've been saying for weeks now, which is you always have to have a good session 0. You have to talk about it, what you're doing with your players, and you have to be with a group that you know that you get along with.
Yep.
For instance, in our game, when we were running Lost Mines of Phandelver, our players had some PvP.
Yeah.
Nobody died, right? We handled it properly. I wasn't upset. He wasn't upset. And in the story, it fit. And I think that is the most important thing. And there's really two ways you can do PvP, right? You can do a straight up battle royale, which is a ton of fun.
Hell
I
yeah.
definitely recommend doing that because it's straight up beer and pretzel style D&D, which is kind of the best D&D.
And it's a totally isolated game.
Exactly. Or you make sure that everybody at the table is kind of on the same page, or at least it's understood the progression of what's going on. So, for instance, in our game, Tom's character and another character at the table, they were kind of like hiding the fact that they had burned my character's sibling's body.
Yes.
And we're lying about all these things that had happened. And then my character went against the group to find out the truth, and then combat ensued. And like the whole like idea of like someone trying to cover up the tracks, and then once they've been outed, they're like, oh shit, I gotta fight. That whole like thing, story-wise, made a lot of sense. We knew what was going to happen, or we at least had an idea of what was going to happen. Also, your character was a dickhead.
Yes.
So I figured something like that was going to happen, and I kind of had meted a plan of what I would do: cast invisibility, get the fuck out of there, because I'm not trying to fight a rogue as a bard.
Murdered.
No, I don't think I would have been murdered. I have spells, but it would have been an interesting fight. But also, I didn't want to derail what we were doing too bad. But anyway.
Right.
It just always goes back to the idea that you have to find the right playing group for any playing style you're trying to do. But PvP can be a ton of fun. It's a way to test the meta, right? You can learn what multi-classes work good against other multi-classes.
Yep.
What's truly the strongest character class, cleric. And
Definitely rogue.
Rogue is a close second for sure. But yeah, you just really need to know the boundaries and set the boundaries for your play group. One of the things that I always recommend to players is the most important thing about playing this game is not necessarily like fulfilling your story or doing the right campaign, but it's finding the right play group.
Yeah.
And if you have the right play group, you can play any style of game. And all of those styles of game are viable and really fun to do.
Yeah, and I think that speaks back to our game. Because I think this group that we have is the right group for us.
Absolutely.
Because we had that PvP. Nobody got pissed off about it. No one was like, whoa, what's happening? Like, I'm not having fun. It was a good kind of end to that small story arc that we internally built. I just think, like, honestly, I think it's a little childish for people to not even look at PvP. I feel like we're all adults. Like, we're all adults that can handle situations as long as we speak to each other.
Well, not necessarily, and that's kind of like the split, because there's really two negative outcomes. There's two reasons for negative outcomes for things like player versus player, evil campaigns, having evil players in the party, all these kinds of things. And the two reasons are you're doing something that you didn't talk about the group with, and and you're directly using the game as an avenue to shit on other people, which. Second rule of D&D is don't be a dick, right?
Yeah.
And then the other negative, or the other reason that the stigma is there is because other people talk about that this is the stigma. So it's past experience and then word around the horn, right? And the old heads who have been playing a long time and kind of know all of the different scenarios that you can get in with different people around a table, they understand all of these things. And really, this video is for new players. If you're an older player and you've been in a lot of PvP scenarios and it just didn't work out for you and it ended friendships or friend groups or whatever, I definitely think that your opinion on that is valid, right? If you've always been, if every single PvP situation you've been in has been a negative one and it's not fun for you, then you shouldn't be forced to do it.
Okay. Yeah.
And in that instance, if you're at a table and a lot of people want to PvP, your character can just opt out. Maybe you're the announcer and you're taking bets on the people fighting.
Yeah.
Maybe you
absolutely.
can rig it to your favor. Do something else in game that's clever and fun, but you don't necessarily have to participate. But also, you shouldn't take your negative experience and then use it to shit on someone else's fun. But on the same side, if you're very vocal that you don't like PvP, other players should definitely respect it.
Yeah, of course. I think, again, as a group, you guys come to these conclusions. If it's like something where it's like you have a group of 7 and 4,
It's a rough game.
okay, so let's go with 5.
No,
even.
let's
It
go with
still
7.
works.
No, let's go
Okay.
with 7.
So 7 people. It's just an example. 7 people and 4 people are against PvP and 3 are for it.
Let those 3 people duke it out.
Yeah, let them fight amongst each other. Like if they want to do PvP, let them do it. My big gripe with this whole thing about fucking PvP is that to me, D&D, the entire world, like the way the game is built, the way the lore is presented, PvP is a thing that should naturally occur. Now, let me kind of explain this a little, because I think people are going to take it the wrong way. But so what you have is you create a group of adventurers, right, that exist in, like, let's be honest, an extremely hyper violent world. Because you're going around, things are always going wrong.
In some aspects, like it might seem that way because you're the party that's doing all the violent shit or involved in it. But like other people in the world might just be in a little hamlet living their best life. But there is supernatural things happening, and there's invading evil entities, and magic flying all over the place, and there's all kinds of things for sure.
Even if you don't, let's say, even interact with people in the towns, and you're just going dungeon diving, like that's very hyper violent. You're just murdering things. So
killing, not murdering.
Sure.
Paladins don't murder.
Killing. Anyways, when your group of adventurers first come together and they don't know each other and they have different beliefs, like, it's only natural for humans to disagree, right? Not everybody's going to agree with each other. So I think...
Well, and also not every group of people is going to disagree to the point that they're fighting.
No,
but it can definitely happen.
Right, it can go both ways. And my thing is that this happens naturally in real life. You're not going to get a group of adventurers who are all well-versed in how to kill people and use their magic to get what they want. They're not going to be like a group that gets along all the time. It's just, that's not a logical thing. On top of having all these issues and these problems, like disagreeing when you don't know each other, I also think this is a personal belief of mine, because I'm a writer. So when you introduce this group together and they start having growing pains, right? This is how I explain it to everyone. You have growing pains within the group. You guys are working together. Some of you may agree with each other. Some of you may disagree. You guys, sometimes your characters might hate each other. And you're going to make decisions based on what's best for your character, and another player's character may not agree with that. So you have all these growing pains, and from, let's say, level 1 to level 10, I think that all this internal conflict within the groups, PvP, is good not only for your group as a whole and your characters individually in the long run, but when you eventually take this lich that's trying to take over the world and you take him down, your experience, and with you taking this guy down, it's going to be a more rewarding experience, because your group has come a long way.
Yeah, not only did you overcome the statistical obstacle, but you came over the metaphysical obstacle. And I sort of agree with that. You can also, I mean, it is a game. So like there is a good amount of metagaming involved in the whole creating of the group. For instance, you sit down at the table, you're all level 5 parties. The DM says, "Oh, you've all been working together for a long time. You're all familiar with how everybody acts, and you're all kind of on the same page on things." Kind of skipping all the growing pains part. It's really good for one shots, or like maybe you want to pick up and do a higher level campaign and you want to skip all that just because it takes a lot of time.
Sure.
You want to get to the adventure. But on the other side of that token, if you're a level 1 party and it's the first time you're meeting with the group. If you're a mercenary, most mercenaries have like a code of like ethics and professionalism that they apply to, but they also have a personal code.
Sure.
But what this really boils down to is this, and I think you can apply real life experiences to this sort of storytelling device, and that is, I don't know if any of you out there have ever been in a fight with someone that you're a friend with or someone that you're an acquaintance with.
Yeah.
But there's 2 outcomes that comes with that. I was picked on in school. I got in a lot of fights. So there's 2 outcomes that come from that. You get in a fight with someone and you never talk to them again and it's over, or you get in a fight with someone and you become friends from it. Your relationship with that person is strengthened somehow.
Right.
Especially like you have a friend and they have like a problem, like maybe they drink too much, or they talk shit, or they're hitting on girls that you like and you just don't like it. Like things like that happen all the time. You get in a fight, you take your lumps, you get it out of your system, and then you have a conversation about it. That happens so often in real life. Now also
all the time.
I've had that plenty of times happen in my life. But then also you can get in a fight with someone and then it ends the friendship and that's it. Or someone gets really hurt. Someone could even get killed from that. But as a storytelling device, it is very authentic to the human experience.
Yes.
So that is the question that you want to pose in your fantasy games. Do you want to make it as realistic to the human experience as possible, or do you want to remove some of the things to create your own fantasy experience? Mm-hmm. And again, these are all Session Zero group discussions.
Yep.
But I think that it's the stigma, even though I think it's very well placed, I think the stigma is kind of, it's unfortunate because what it does is it limits you from a type of play that you might really enjoy. And if you're not getting that from the group that you're with, find another group. Maybe one group they do a lot of PvP and the other group you do no. Then you get a little taste of both.
Yeah.
But you should never say absolutely not at my table unless you have a lot of prior experiences and you've really determined that it's not fun for you.
But see, that's the issue. That's where the issue comes in here. It seems that a lot of players, or at least a lot of the players I spoke to, and we're going on like 90% of the people I spoke to, not only do they not like it, but they haven't played it. So
right.
The fact
that's another thing is you shouldn't talk about anything unless you've had experience with it, for sure.
Well, the thing about that is like PvP is one of my things that I really wanted to get into. When I first started playing, I'm not saying, hey, let's fucking try to kill each other and these monsters all the time. Like things just happen. That experience where my player and your player got into it was because of the fact that not only were my player and Nora's player trying to hide something, but it was also the fact that Lorelai, God, I almost forgot her name, that Lorelai totally went against the group's wishes.
Right.
And we were
which is totally what her character would get. She couldn't figure it out.
Exactly. And we were trying to extract as much information about the rest of the Mines of Fendelver as possible. And she took it upon herself to do it in a personal manner. Now, then that fight ensued. And not only did we get closure, but we got closure in a very interesting way.
Yeah.
We got to fuck around a little and have some fun. And on top of that, Lorelai and Vivek's relationship grew stronger from that fight.
It did. And I got to send the Banshee to the 37th level of hell.
Oh, yeah, that was fucking crazy.
Which was insane. As a bard.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's endless possibilities. And I think people having this stigma, I'm a very open-minded person when it comes to lots of things. So having a closed mind, especially in something like this, like I can sort of understand it. Like you said earlier, right? You're not going to definitely want to kill this player, but sometimes it'll happen by accident.
Right.
So that's where I think.
And even like in our instance, you could have done it in a totally sneaky way and actually one-shotted me if you wanted to.
I had to meta that a little. Yeah. I had to, and instead of
and there definitely should be some meta involved with the PvP because you don't want to outright kill another player.
No.
Player's character, but it is a possibility, and everyone listen. If you're playing D&D, you should always have a backup character. I don't care what kind of game you're playing.
3.
You have to be okay with your character dying at some point because it's probably going to happen. There's a very high chance that it could happen, and you just need to be able to let it go. Some of the greatest characters that I've ever played, the ones that I loved the most, died at level 4 or 5.
Damn.
Not even close to the end of the campaign we were running. But that doesn't mean that the experience wasn't rewarding, and it doesn't mean I didn't love the character that came after. But it's just a fictional sheet of paper that's just numbers, and you have so many ideas in your head. It's just people get stuck on this idea of control and safe space.
Yeah, that's not what it's about. Like,
you have to. Well, for some people it is, and you got to respect those people. But if they're not conducive to your play style, find another group.
Well, my thing is like they shouldn't be so attached up to that level because the fact of the matter is that we're going through a D&D adventure.
Well, whether they should or shouldn't.
Extremely. First off, all of these battles, your DM is making it so that they're challenging and that it's a risk. Like your character's literally risking his life, his or her life every single time you venture out. So that should just be an understanding of the game that there's a significantly high chance that your character will not make it to the end of this campaign. That's just how things are. So if you throw in a small amount of PvP. We're not saying murder your party
Right.
and steal their money and leave. Like, but people getting into if your character and another player's character have been having disagreements for 6 or 7 sessions now, and it's just been kind of boiling to the top, to me, if you take that and all of a sudden you guys are no longer arguing, you're no longer violent people, and you've both changed the way that you think
about each other.
Yeah. First off, it makes no fucking sense at all. You're basically just doing something just so it doesn't escalate.
Well, and that listen, and all these things you're saying, it just keeps coming back to my point. It's all about the type of game you want to play and the group you want to play with. Of
course.
And while I love that play style, I totally agree with it, and that's why our group gets along so well.
Yeah.
Because we're very much about natural progression of story. We all talk about what we want our characters to get done. But you know, I would just it's not really I'm telling you how to play the game. I'm just recommending to give it a chance.
Yeah.
And making sure that you follow the protocol, the right precautions when you're going into it, because not all people are as mentally sound or as mentally explorative as other people. For me, I like to think that I'm an anything goes kind of player for D&D. I think if it's a good idea and you tell me about it and we're on the same page, let's fucking do it, man. It's a fantasy game. We can do whatever we want in it. Why the fuck not?
It's not going to affect your real life.
It's not going to affect your real life. And not a lot of people do that, especially like younger kids, teenagers who have like, you know, problems at home or in school, or maybe they have self-esteem issues, you know, things like that. It can affect them differently.
Sure.
And we don't live in that space, and that's not for us to tell them how to live their game. But I think that limiting yourself may hurt you more than exploring the fullness that the experience can give you.
100%. Yeah, I think that it's like you said, we're not telling you to play a certain way. We're not telling you to do this or you're not a real D&D player. We're saying that the chance at having a different kind of experience when you've never had it is a good thing, especially in D&D, because it's always about creating new experiences.
And for new players, I actually recommend not doing PvP. I recommend not doing PvP. I recommend not doing evil games. I recommend not doing evil players. Only because it takes a certain nuance to actually achieve those in a successive and fun way. Yeah. Also, you need to be able to take the time to find the right play group, like I keep saying over and over again. I sound like a broken record here.
But that's the truth.
It's so important because a lot of people's experiences, their first, second, third to 10th session or whatever, can really be stunted based on the aggressive actions of experienced players who have fucking issues and see them as someone that they can exploit. And I've seen that happen at the table, and it's not fun. It makes me upset. We've played in an online game where the DM was really kind of spitting in the face of what one of the characters was trying to do. The character was doing everything they could to delicately word how they were saying it, and just the DM would somehow turn it around against them. And it's not fun for that player, and it makes me not have fun, because whenever I see someone blatantly attacking someone's character or the DM or something like that, I get really defensive because it's ruining this great game.
Yeah.
And there are definitely those kind of people out in the world.
Oh, 100%.
Just in everything. And
100%.
so you just need to be careful who you get in bed with.
Yeah, I just think, like, at the end of the day, so we did that podcast on the competitive D&D, right, and how that's coming about. I think that especially now, it's very important for everybody to try it out, to give it a chance, because this competitive D&D is going to branch off into something that the game has never really had before.
Right.
And it could take it to the next level. Like, there could be a whole not only a whole nother way to play and approach the game, but you're talking about it appealing to like a totally different market,
right,
to the point where obviously this won't be true. This is hyperbole, but it could double the amount of players playing D&D. Right. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we want to do? We want to share this experience with other people.
I think actually with competitive D&D, what's going to happen is similar to what happens in a live action role play in LARPs. So I haven't LARPed a lot. I did it a few times. My cousins were on a LARP.
Nerd!
Yeah,
sorry.
Dude, I'm ultimate level nerd. Eternal Pizza Party Productions, check them out. They're a non-for-profit gaming organization, and they do LARPs, Let's Plays, streams, all kinds of stuff. They're amazing. in the LARP community, there's two types of gamers. There's the RPers and then there's the battle gamers. And the battle bros and the RPers really don't get along because the two styles are so different. And then there are people in the middle, which is the majority.
Right.
You have the battle bros that are only there to like dress up in costumes and beat the shit out of each other. And then you have the RPers who just want to escape from reality and get involved in the story. And then you have the people who are in between who are like a balance of both. I would like to say that I'm that kind of player.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see that happening in D&D where competitive D&D comes and it's creating an avenue for all these players who are, super competitive in nature. Like for instance, Magic the Gathering players are super competitive in nature. They want to win something, right? And like they should definitely have that. But what you're going to see is actually a bleeding over of the two gaming groups. And that happens all the time, but it's just going to be more recognized, and they're going to start putting labels on those kind of players. Like, you're just a competitive player.
Yeah.
You should just go do that. Don't worry about RPing. And I think that whole like friction is going to happen next if competitive D&D becomes popular.
See, now that like to me that doesn't make sense because as somebody who's like I guess still fairly new, 3 years, I think
that's still fairly new.
Yeah, I'm still a fairly new player. I've always seen D&D as like one of the most welcoming and most inclusive communities.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, like you're talking about like gaming, literally anything else.
But that's because we haven't had that avenue for the competitive gamer.
Right. So
it's never happened.
But that's what I'm saying. Like when this comes into play now, I don't see why it should be any different because sure, they're playing a style that's a little bit different from your traditional D&D game, but at the same time,
actually it's not though.
Its core functions are exactly the same.
It's not different though. It's actually original D&D.
What, PvP?
Well, the competitive D&D is very original style D&D. Kick down the door and fight. And there's there's really no RP involved because that's all the game. Because you got to remember, D&D started as a war game. Chainmail was creating basically a Warhammer style game.
Yeah, it was.
And then Gary Gygax had the great idea. Was like, well, what if we went into the story of the soldier? And that's where the whole brainchild spawned from. And so that is actually more, I would say, more akin to the traditional experience. But the experience has evolved so much over the years that you've created this environment for RPers. We're in a very heavy RP accepted era of Dungeons and Dragons. People want to watch it on TV because of the story, because that's what you watch on TV is you watch stories.
Yeah, of course.
That's why the RP is so heavily involved, and so all these new players are coming in for the RP aspect and not necessarily with the combat. But then you create competitive D&D, which is mostly strictly combat, no RP.
Yeah.
Which is very traditional. So like that's just where we're at. The older player base is not going to be affected by any of this. This is strictly for newer players. They're kind of in like a weird cyclone space of different ideas being thrown around.
But that's the thing is like even RDM, right? Eros has been playing for a while, and he's said before that he does not want any type of any PvP in our games, right? And then just having these conversations with these players, most of them were older players, and they not only, like I said, have never done it, they don't want it.
Eros specifically was bringing that up, I think, and this is just my perception, because he didn't know the group, and I think that's actually a very smart.
I think that's just one of his rules, man. I just think that's a rule that he's going to stick to.
And also he has a story to tell. He puts a lot of work in it, and he doesn't like it being derailed. So I think he would allow PvP if we talk to him about it. Like, hey, this is how our characters have been working. We might get into a fight. We want to make sure we can work that in with your schedule, because the DM does a lot of work to make the game ready every week.
Oh, of
and
course.
the DM should definitely have full clarity on what is going on in your head. Transparency, that's what I was looking for. So, and I think we've played with him a lot now, that if we brought that up to him, he would probably be cool with it. Yeah. But having that as an initial rule for him, his reasons, I totally agreed with.
So yeah, I just think at the end of the day, to me, PvP I think could be something awesome that people can inject into their everyday games. It could be very mild. We're not saying full battles, whatever.
It's varying degrees.
Yeah, and especially for people that like story and character development, I think it's very important for that side. It can really, really kick your storytelling up a notch.
Absolutely.
It can take your player characters from just simple one-layered characters that might have a couple flaws to these characters that now their dynamic has become a little complex.
Absolutely.
And like I said, I still think it's very rewarding.
And we haven't even talked about the possibility of having a player character with the group, and the infighting has come so much that character actually decides to leave the group, become a villain maybe. That's even cooler. That's so much fun.
It can even be,
and then you just come in with another player of the same level.
Yeah, and it can be, and if you're not enjoying, like, yourself as a character, if you're not, or as a player, as a character.
Yeah, I'm the character.
I'm the character. If you're not enjoying how you're playing this character or how the character functions in general, this could be an easy exit for you. Or like you just said, if you and your DM have a conversation, which is, again, this was my original prototype for Vivek, was I wanted him to have this glaring secret that he kept away from the group. And eventually, when it was discovered, I wanted him to become the villain. And I had this all planned out from A to Z. And I thought, man, what a cool way to go.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's a pretty like popularly used trope for PvP specifically. A lot of DMs will be like, "Oh, this player the whole time they've been planning to betray the party and become the villain." And it's a lot of fun when that happens. Like that whole aha, oh my god moment when they turn their back on you and then they just come in with another character sheet and then the DM takes over is just so much fun.
yeah, and I mean, it worked out. We see examples. It worked out on Critical Role.
It did.
It worked very well on Critical Role.
But again, that's the whole. Make sure you're with the right group.
Exactly.
Make sure you guys are talking about everything, all of that stuff.
I feel like honestly, most of the things are finding the right group, but even still, if you don't find the right group, I'm sure you guys can talk your way through
open
some
communication, not being and not being like completely subscribed to an idea, because if you really want to do something,
Subscribe. Sorry.
Speaking of subscribe, if the whole group doesn't want you to do it and they're really against it, maybe you put it backseat and save it for later.
Sure.
Until you're more comfortable.
And that's
with it.
always something like you don't know. Like we discussed earlier of groups kind of playing with each other longer. Or Eros, like he didn't know us at first, but now he kind of understands. And I think, like you said, he feels like we would be kind of responsible with it as opposed to destroying everything. You could be with a group that's totally against it, and then a year from now, you guys are PvP.
It's a slow burn.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, let us know what you think in the comments section below. Have you done PvP? What were your experiences? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Whore this link out to all your friends. And remember to keep the good games rolling.
I'm going to roll for it, baby.
Roll for it, baby. Let's see how good you are this week. 7. Lucky number 7.
That was terrible.
It's okay. You get a plus 10 modifier.
What the fuck? Look what just happened.
You roll a natural 20.
I go to put it back in its place, and it's a
on
natural
the roll
20.
back.